Indiana football suffers a huge loss from the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. Question is, can they still get a big-name quarterback in the portal?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Continue the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Happy Friday. Hope you're doing well. Got a huge weekend on tap in terms of Indiana basketball tonight versus Miami of Ohio. We'll talk about that, what I'd like to see from this Indiana squad before they get really ramped up in Big Ten play, which has been insane. Purdue lost, by the way, in case you didn't see that. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about some of those other big names in the transfer portal for Indiana football at the quarterback position. Connor Weigman, how about Mateer from Washington State, or Matthew Sluva from UNLV. Seen a lot of people recommend him as well. But we need to talk about why Indiana is going to possibly struggle to get those types of guys, because we suffered a huge loss on the offensive staff yesterday. As it is official, everybody's reporting it, everybody is seeing it. UCLA has come in and snatched Indiana's quarterback coach and co-offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri. He will now be the new offensive coordinator at UCLA. They fired the coordinator they had for a year, the guy from the Kansas City Chiefs. They fired him. And look, this was going to happen at some point. I'm not saying it was going to happen at UCLA, but this was going to happen at some point, right? Tino is a great coach. He's a really, really good coach. He's a young up-and-comer. He's a really smart guy, and he's got a really solid track record, right? I mean, he's worked with big-time quarterbacks at a lot of big-time programs, guys that have played on Sundays. I mean, we're talking about somebody who brings so much more than can even be put into words, even more than you and I can understand since we're not in the building or with the program. He was such a huge glue piece for this Indiana offense. He's a big reason Curtis Rourke came here. He's also a big reason that Curtis Rourke became what he became, right? You had two offensive coordinators, basically, one guy in the booth and the other guy on the field, and Tino was the guy on the field. He was the one who managed them during the games. He was the one who could relay calls. He was the one who could calm them down. He was the one who could hype them up. He was the one who could walk them through different situations. I mean, he was, I think, one of the most important offensive coaches on this staff. I mean, he was the reason that Indiana had any chance, right? Any chance to land the 5-star quarterback commit or quarterback recruit in Juju Lewis. I know it didn't work out that way. We didn't get him. But let's be real. He was the only reason Indiana was even mentioned. He's the only reason Juju even thought about Indiana. And now he's going to be coaching as a new OC at UCLA. I wish him nothing but the best. He seems like a really good dude. Every interaction that people have had with him that I've heard about has been really, really good. Congratulations to him. But this hurts Indiana big time. I mean, this hurts us really, really big. And not saying he should feel bad about it or anything. I mean, he's doing his own thing and accelerating his career. That's fine. I'm saying we are going to feel the negative impact of that in several ways. All those things I just talked about, right, on the field, that success you saw Curtis Rourke have this year was a big credit to Tino Sunseri. Also, something a lot of you have talked about, the development of quarterbacks behind Curtis Rourke as well. Tyler Cherry, A, him coming to Indiana, and B, I think some progression that we have heard about him making in that backup quarterback role, maybe that third quarterback role, and also Taven Jackson. Right, I think Taven Jackson, you saw in the limited action he played this year when Curtis Rourke went down with injury, Taven looked good. He looked really good compared to what we saw a year ago, too. Taven looked solid, and you have to give that credit to Tino because he was the quarterback coach as well. And I think it's just known how good he is at what he does. And so with all of that, you're going to hurt on the field. There's no doubt about it. Your quarterback development's going to hurt. Your coordinating is going to hurt. Your game planning is going to hurt. Your play calling is going to hurt. And for an offense that was one of the most effective offenses in the country, for Curtis Rourke, who had the highest passing rating in college football, you're going to miss this. This stings. This hurts. Good news is Tino is going to hang out and coach for the rest of the season, right? Whatever postseason and however long we go in that postseason, he is going to be at Indiana and still helping us try to win a national championship, which is really, really good to hear. That's rare nowadays. So shout out to Sunseri for that. But we're also going to hurt in recruiting and in the transfer portal. And this is a really crucial time for Indiana. We've talked a lot about quarterbacks for this Indiana program and who they should go after in the transfer portal. We have more of that coming up in the next segment, but it's going to be difficult, more difficult now without Tino Sunseri here. I don't want to say a deal breaker, but it could be something that quarterbacks were considering Indiana for, and now they may look somewhere else because of it. I'm just saying it like it is. And until you can bring somebody in that is somewhat equal or close to what he offers and what he brings, Indiana may see themselves miss out on big-time names because of this loss of a major coach. And so I hope not. I hope that we can replace him. I hope that we can overcome this. But you start talking big-name quarterbacks in the portal, man, and Tino's got it. Tino knows what he's doing, and he is the reason so many guys have played here, gotten better, and even other places, too, have just become what they've become. And so Indiana's got to find a way to overcome it. If you want to start talking names like Weigman and Mateer or Sluva, yeah, you've got to find a way to overcome that. And my guess would be he really won't be a part of recruiting or transfer portal anymore. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, does it? For him to be in those conversations to, oh, yeah, you should come to Indiana. It's a great place. I mean, I won't be here. I decided to leave, but you should think about coming here. You know what I mean? Like it's got a weird taste to it, right? Got a weird smell to it, if you will. So I hate to see it, man. I really, really do. I was sad to see the news, but it is what it is. Tino Sunseri hired at UCLA for their new offensive coordinator position. We talked about how it can affect the quarterback recruiting in the transfer portal, but you still got to find somebody. You still got to bring someone in. Is it Weigman? Is it Mateer? Is it somebody else? We'll talk about that coming up next right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Look, I love a great deal as much as the next guy, and I'm sure that you do too. But I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It's got to be easy. No hoops, no BS, right? So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them out on it. I said, nah, no way. But it turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for just $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time that I spent on hold telling my old provider, yeah, we're done, hon. Gotta go. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There, you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered to the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers. I say it every day because I really, really do mean it. You guys show up, continue to show up and support this show, and it really does mean the absolute world. Whether you're on your audio platforms of Spotify or Amazon or Apple or wherever you are over there, thank you so much for listening every single day, whether it's on the way to work, in the shower, at the office, in the garage. I don't care. As long as you're listening, I'm just grateful that you do. And then those of you on YouTube, numbers are going insane on YouTube right now. So December's off to a really great start, and you're the reason for that. So thank you so much for that. And be sure that every single time, including on this video, that you like it, right? That gets it out there, shares it to the world, lets other people find it. Be sure that you are commenting down below. How do you feel about losing Sunseri? I know it hurts. It stings. I know. But let me know your thoughts on it. Can Indiana overcome, right? Can we bounce back from losing a big-time coach off the staff? And then be sure that you subscribe to the channel, okay? We're pushing for 4,000 subs before the turn of the new year. We're on our way. We're at 37. Hold on. I'll give you a live number as we sit here right now. 3736. We're surging like crazy. It's going to be a hard push, but I think we can make it. So if you have not subscribed, it's free. It's easy. That way you can see this show every single day, Monday through Friday. It's free, so you may as well subscribe and help us out, okay? Thank you so much for doing that. Well, I've talked about how Indiana is going to struggle, and we're going to have to overcome this loss of Tino Sunseri, the new offensive coordinator at UCLA, but we can still land a big-time quarterback in the portal. I believe that, and I've seen a lot of you in the YouTube comments and on Twitter and just a lot of Indiana fans in general who have started to ask the question, do we really need a transfer portal quarterback? Do you really have to go get a portal quarterback this class? I mean, or this cycle, I guess. Taven Jackson's played well. Tyler Cherry seems to have gotten better. I mean, you feel like you could get by with the guys in that room. And I think you probably could. I just don't think it's worth it to take that risk. In today's world of college football, with NIL and the transfer portal, there should never be a year, ever, in my opinion, there should never be a year where you don't go get a quarterback in the portal. Unless you have just got 3 or 4 5-stars stacked up in your high school recruiting class, which Indiana has failed to do, obviously, you have to go get dudes in the portal. And you have to give your quarterback room as many options as possible to be competitive. And you have to give yourself as many options as possible so you don't get left out in the cold, right? You've seen several programs who have gambled and lost because they thought they had their guy. They didn't go pay a quarterback and they didn't want to go get one or didn't feel it was necessary, right? And then you get halfway through the season and you're like, crap, our guy's not here. We don't have who we need or who we want. You saw Indiana do that last year, and it's worked out pretty well, right, with Curtis Rourke. I think you have to do that every single year. And until you get in that rotation of having several big-time quarterbacks in your program, you have to do that. And I think Indiana has to do that right now. Nothing against Taven Jackson and Tyler Cherry. I think they'll compete for the job. I really do. And I'm not even saying you have to go get just a bona fide starter. Just go get somebody. Go get a body. Go get somebody to compete who could start if they win the job, but they'll push the other ones even if they don't. And that's why we've talked about guys like Miller Moss and Caden Salter and McNamara and those types of guys who, yeah, their names, they may start or they may not, but it's an extra body in the room. Now, the guys we're talking about today very well could walk in and start as soon as they get here. Talking about guys like Connor Weigman, the Texas A&M transfer quarterback who is planning on entering the transfer portal. Reminder, portal opens up on Monday. December 9th, the portal opens up officially on Monday, and it's going to be insane. Just be ready for it. It's going to be absolutely crazy. He started 13 games at Texas A&M. He threw for, I just had the stats pulled up. Where'd they go? Well, I had his stats pulled up. Well, I'll get them in a second. Oh, there they go. And 15 games in his game in college. All right, 15 games. 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns. Not too bad. Connor Weigman's also got some big-time wins under his belt as well. He has had some injury problems now. He's had major injury issues. He had the foot injury a year ago. He had, I believe, a shoulder injury this year that sidelined him during the game, where he went to the hospital and then came back to win an SEC game. Not too bad, right? So you've got all of that. And I think no, that was somebody else. Apologies. That was somebody else. Anyway, he's had several injuries as Connor Weigman, but I do think that he is a really solid option. He played in the SEC. He played under a new head coach this year at Texas A&M, and I just think that he could be a really good starter. He was solid a year ago, but coming into 2024, the injury concerns were a big deal for him, and he won them some games, but he just couldn't ever get back to true form. They went to a younger guy, and A&M is now, a solid team. They were flirting to make a college football playoff, but that kind of fizzled out towards the end of the year. So I think Connor Weigman could be a big-time option if the Hoosiers wanted to go that way. I've also seen a lot of you talk about this guy, and I wanted to bring him up as well. How about John Mateer? How about John Mateer, the Washington State quarterback who plans to enter the transfer portal? In 2 years at Washington State, right? 24 games. He started 12 of those 24. He threw for 3,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Let me say those again. In 12 starts, 24 total games, 3,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions with a 65% completion percentage. Also added almost 1,000 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. That's awesome. That's really, really good. I think John Mateer, for whatever reason, is underrated. I think it's because he's coming from Washington State, a program that has just really been put on the back burner, right, with all the conference realignment stuff and everybody moving around and everything. People kind of forgot about teams like Washington State, Oregon State, places like that. John Mateer is legit. Mateer could probably go anywhere in the country if he wanted to. Watch out for UCLA because of Tino Sunseri now. But I think Indiana needs to really look at this kid for what he could do as a dual threat. I know we have one of those kind of with Taven Jackson, I guess, and you didn't really have one with Curtis Rourke. I mean, yes, he can move, but that's not what we want him to do, right? We want him to step in and throw the football. I think Mateer could be one of the hottest names in the transfer portal. And also Matthew Sluka. Don't get him confused, or don't forget about him either. Matthew Sluka. I think I may have said Sluka earlier. Apologies. Matthew Sluka, the UNLV quarterback. Remember the whole NIL thing where he said he was promised this and then they didn't give it to him and he said, screw you and kick rocks. I'm leaving, whatever. Could be a head case. Could be a lot of drama, but the kid can play. More on him later on in other episodes, but just keep an eye on some of those names. Connor Weigman from Texas A&M and Mateer from Washington State and possibly Sluka from UNLV. Can Indiana land big name quarterbacks in the portal without Tino Sunseri? I guess we're going to find out. And I think we need one, but we're going to find out. All right, coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, flipping over to basketball. As Indiana is in action tonight, they host Miami of Ohio. While the win should not be in question, right? Indiana's favored by double digits, nearly 20 points. What do we want to see in this game tonight? What needs to happen to make us feel a little better about this Indiana squad? We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Did you bet on the Lions comeback last night or the Packers come back, and then the Lions come back. It was crazy. What a great game that it was for Thursday Night Football. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all my everydayers. Be sure that you are liking these videos, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, commenting down below which quarterback should Indiana go after in the transfer portal. And I also want to hear your thoughts on Indiana basketball tonight as they are back in action against Miami of Ohio. That's right, back inside of Assembly Hall. Hoosiers favored by 18.5, according to our friends at FanDuel, where Indiana is hopefully going to get another win inside of Assembly Hall right before they get started in a couple of their Big Ten games. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday, but have to bring it up again today, where Purdue falls on the road to Penn State on Thursday, a team that Indiana knows too much about, unfortunately, from a year ago. So Indiana needs to use this game as a true get-right game, right? We saw us play pretty well against Sam Houston, doing things much better in the second half than they were in the first half. But remember, after this, Indiana opens up with Minnesota on Monday, and then you play Nebraska coming up, but it looks like on Thursday, that one on the road for Indiana next week. And so you've got to be sure that you're ready to go if you're the Hoosiers. And that's on Friday, that Nebraska game. That's a week from today, on the road at Nebraska. And so you've seen several Big Ten teams fall already against other Big Ten squads. And I wish we were going ahead and getting into it, but I'm not going to complain about one more game to try to figure some things out. And defensively, it's simple. Play with effort. If you show any effort, any care, any want at all, I think Indiana will be fine. I think we've done a good job when we come out of a half. Typically, it's the second half. But when we come out and just act like we care, right? Act like we just want to play, we lock down. We're good on ball defenders, especially our guards with Rice and Galloway for now. Carlisle, of course, with the injury. But we're good on ball defenders. And that's a good thing. We've got McKenzie and Baco. You still have your two guys down low with Ballo and Renew if they can stay out of foul trouble, Malik. And so I'm not worried about our defense when we play. It's just when we decide not to care. Got to run, got to get back, quit getting beat down the floor. That's making me frustrated as well. I think all the focus has to be offensively for this team, right? I mean, we have so many shot makers and playmakers and skill guys on this team, and so many of them that can do so many different things, but yet we're just limiting them because of the offense that we run. And when you open it up a little bit and you spread guys out and you move without the basketball and you set several off-ball screens and backdoor cuts and flex cuts and things like that, guys get open. And you can see that there are playmakers on the floor, right? Miles Rice had a good game. We need him to be consistent at that point guard spot. I would love to see Trey Galloway get into a rhythm. We've seen him with sparks again this year, but we need him to be consistent Trey that we saw several seasons ago. And you still have to remember what the strength of this team is. It's the bigs down low with Umar Ballo and Malik Renew. I would love for them to play a two-man game. Go back and forth, pass it to each other, set each other up, bounce it down low, come off the screen, alley-oop it to each other, or just have one of those, or use McKenzie and Baco as well. The dude's a freak of an athlete. He needs to get open for three-point shots. You kick it down low to Ballo or Renew, they collapse on them, and Baco swings to the corner. Boom, there he is, and he's wide open for a three. It's simple. You just have to move without the basketball. And I think Mike Woodson has got to find a way to let his brain not do what it wants to do, but do what it needs to do. Play to the strengths of your team rather than trying to make your team play to your system, right? Adjust your system to your players. Don't make your players adjust to your system. And sometimes that is backwards, right? Sometimes it is the other way, but not now. I think at this point, Mike Woodson has shown he doesn't have it anymore in terms of his offensive game plan, and he's got to find a way to change that. If he does, he'll stay around and he'll be okay. If he doesn't, I've told you, I think he'll be gone. So you've got to play to your team's strengths, and then you got to get production off the bench. I continue to say that, and I will continue to say that from guys like Luke Goody, Langdon Hatton, and Bryson Tucker. And it was great to see Goody play that way the other night. I think he can have another big game here. Take care of Miami of Ohio and launch yourself into Big Ten play. I don't think the win is in jeopardy here. You've got to play like it, though. You've got to come out and play well because they believe they can win, right? These low major teams now, they believe they can do it, and they've got the dudes to do it. Indiana and Miami of Ohio tonight inside of Assembly Hall before the Hoosiers get ready for Minnesota on Monday and then Nebraska on Friday. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really do appreciate it. Been a huge week for shows on the channel, so thank you so much for that. Again, be sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, it's free. It takes one tap of your thumb, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. A reminder that this is free. Audio, video, no matter how you get it, it is free to you every single day. So be sure that you are turning on those notifications, subscribing if you can. Have a great weekend, Hoosier fans. Indiana basketball tonight, conference championships on Saturday, selection Sunday for the college football playoff. And we're going to have a full breakdown for you coming up next week on Locked On Hoosiers. Until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.